Mr. Speaker, this motion to instruct conferees is very simple and straightforward. It directs conferees negotiating extensions of the payroll tax cut, unemployment insurance, and the SGR to file their conference report by February 17, 2012. Day in and day out, members of this body come to the floor to speak about the level of uncertainty that is hindering the U.S. economy and stifling job growth. We have heard Speaker Boehner argue that the Bush tax cuts must be extended in perpetuity to relieve corporations of uncertainty. We have heard our Tea Party friends rally against the deficit in order to reduce uncertainty for job creators. Time and time again, we've heard our Republican colleagues speak of the uncertainty that EPA regulations have created for expanding jobs. Yet, when we contemplate the uncertainty created for consumers, small businesses, doctors, and the unemployed, driven by Congress's inability to address the payroll tax extension, the SGR fix, and unemployment benefits, our Republican friends are suddenly silent. We all remember the debate in December when, after years of touting the benefits of tax cuts, our Republican colleagues suddenly changed their minds when a payroll tax cut was considered, a tax cut that will provide immediate relief for millions of Americans and will immediately benefit the economy. As we've debated these issues for several months, we've seen the data and heard from economists who say extending the payroll tax cut and unemployment insurance is good for American families, businesses, and economic growth. It isn't the silver bullet to solving all of our nation's problems, but it's a step in the right direction, a step that can provide some relief to the unemployed and stimulate consumer spending, which is fundamental to improving the overall economy. By extending the payroll tax cut through the end of the year, 160 million Americans would continue to take home more money in their paycheck. For a family earning $50,000 a year, that's about $80 a month, or about $1,000 for the year. Without the extension, that $1,000 is unavailable to families for buying groceries or putting gas in their vehicles or buying their children new clothes for school, which when spent at local businesses sparks economic activity. These facts are indisputable. Moody's Analytics estimates that for every dollar spent on the payroll tax cut, it produces $1.27 in economic activity. J.P. Morgan Chase economists also estimated that ending the payroll tax cut and halting an extension of unemployment would shave 0.7% off the GDP next year. Macroeconomic advisors provided a similar analysis last year, stating that allowing the payroll tax cut to lapse would reduce GDP growth by 0.5% and cost the economy 400,000 jobs. A job loss of that magnitude would destroy the improvements in employment we've seen since President Obama took office. Last week, the Labor Department reported that 243,000 jobs were added to the economy in January, marking the 23rd consecutive month of private sector job growth. The unemployment rate also fell to 8.3%, the lowest point since February of 2009. Now, we clearly still have a long way to go. What failure to extend these critical programs would stifle the progress we have seen thus far and thwart future growth. But Americans don't know if they'll have that extra $80 a month to spend come March 1st, and businesses are equally uncertain about whether or not their customers will have that extra income to spend. Yesterday, Mark Zandi, the chief economist at Moody's Analytics, told the Joint Economic Committee that it is vital to extend both the payroll tax cut and unemployment insurance, which together could add 0.9% to GDP if done for the whole year. He also said that failure to do so would deal, quote, a significant blow to the economy, cutting growth by almost 1 full percentage point. We must extend both the payroll tax cut and unemployment insurance. Unemployment insurance provides temporary relief to Americans who lose their jobs through no fault of their own. In a sense, it's a bridge to reemployment. The average weekly benefit in 2011 was $300 a week. That's $1,200 a month. Take that away, and millions of unemployed Americans lose a lifeline to put gas in their tank to get to that job interview or to hire a babysitter while they go out to look for a job. Every little bit helps to get them back on their feet, and that's all Americans want to do, get back to work. In every recession since 1957, the government has stepped in to provide additional support for unemployed workers. Without an extension, 5 million people will exhaust their benefits by the end of 2012. Furthermore, under the GOP proposal in December to adjust the unemployment program, 3.3 million people would lose their unemployment benefits. The Council of Economic Advisors estimates that if unemployment benefits are not extended, the economy can be expected to generate 478,000 fewer jobs, that's fewer jobs, by the end of 2014, an estimate that is consistent with CBO projections. CBO also estimates that $36 billion spent on unemployment insurance would raise GDP between $14 billion and $54 billion, or about 0.22%. The Economic Policy Institute has also estimated that extending unemployment through next year would create $70 billion in economic activity and a 0.4% increase in GDP. While these estimates differ somewhat, they all point to one thing: increased economic activity. Yet here we are, debating whether or not this vital lifeline should be extended for an additional 10 months. For struggling families, this is a frightening time to find our elected leaders squabbling about the Keystone Pipeline and requiring drug testing for unemployment benefits. As American families continue to struggle, so too do American businesses. A survey done in 2011 by the National Federation of Independent Businesses found that 53% of small businesses said lack of demand is an impediment to growth. Extending the payroll tax cut and unemployment will put additional money in the hands of Americans who will in turn spend that money on necessities like food, clothing, and travel. When consumer spending represents roughly 70% of our economy, the policies that create the environment for growth will be the ones that get Americans spending again, and we can do that by putting more money back into the pockets of Americans struggling to make ends meet. It's not just American workers and the unemployed facing uncertainty. Medicare doctors and patients are. If we don't act, the SGR formula responsible for Medicare physician payments will cut reimbursements by 27.4% starting on March 1st. A cut this large will force more doctors out of Medicare at a time when doctors find it difficult to treat Medicare patients, pay employees, and keep their practices open. A 2011 MedPAC survey found that 2% of Medicare patients reported having big problems finding a physician. That may not sound like a lot, but previous surveys showed patients having relatively few, if any, problems. In addition, a 2008 survey done by the Center for Studying Health System Change found that about 14% of physicians accepted no new Medicare patients. And a 2010 survey by the American Medical Association found that 17% of physicians were restricting the number of Medicare patients in their practice. If we fail to find a permanent solution to the SGR, these numbers will only rise, and Medicare patients will not receive the care they need or deserve. Mr. Speaker, the Congress must act to end this uncertainty. I urge my colleagues to support this simple motion to instruct, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from New York reserves the balance of his